What is good, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wrestling with Fans podcast. This is a pro wrestling podcast created by fans for fans from a fan's perspective. My name is Kyle. This is episode 223, the Royal Rumble review. And as you can see, I am not alone on this fine Sunday afternoon. Please welcome back to the show once again, Rick from Game McNerdia. Rick, what is good, my friend?
What's going on, Kyle?
Not much. Now, before we get started, I got all your links down in the description down below, but tell everybody a little about yourself, where they can find you and what you do here on social media.
All right. So, for the last month, I think we've been working on a couple of new projects. But with Game McNerdia, we do Twitch gaming, YouTube videos, reviews, all kinds of different things. So, we're resetting and doing a couple of top 10 video things and a couple of different things with Twitch and YouTube. So, right now, after the holidays and stuff, we're kind of resetting, doing new intro videos, learning new softwares. We've all got upgraded hardware. So, just doing more stuff on Twitch and YouTube coming up. Game Nerdy.
Awesome. So make sure you check him out. Again, all the links, all of his stuff are down in the description down below. But we are here to talk the 2023 WWE Royal Rumble. Let me just interrupt myself here for a quick moment. First off, thank you for checking out Wrestling with Fans here on YouTube. If you're enjoying what you see, make sure to leave a big old thumbs up and click that subscribe button down below. The other ways you can help support the show is to follow us across all of our other social medias. Check us out, facebook.com/Wrestling with Fans. Hulk smash that like button to keep up to date with everything going on here with Wrestling with Fans. Or you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Wrestling with Fans. Check us out on the web at WrestlingWithFans.com. New audio shows go up every single Sunday at midnight. Or you can take us on the go and download us to your favorite podcast, the listening device. You can get us wherever you get your podcast fix. Just search Wrestling with Fans Podcast. We are on all the major platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. Wherever you get your podcast fix, you can find Wrestling with Fans. Last but certainly not least, comments, questions, feedback, topics you want covered on the show, shoot me an email, wwfshow@gmail.com. Again, that's wwfshow@gmail.com. Links to everything are down in the video description and down below, so make sure you check that out. Without further ado, back to the show. It took place from the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. Recorded attendance of 51,338. We only had 5 matches. So, Rick, I'm guessing you just want to start at the top, and we'll just work our way through the card as it happens?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So we kick off. Let me get out my trusty notebook of terror here. We kicked off with the men's Royal Rumble match. I'm going to give a bunch of cool stats about everything that goes on in the match after we get to the end, like most eliminations, most time, all that good stuff. But before we dive into the individual stuff, Rick, what did you think of the men's Rumble match overall to kick off the pay-per-view?
I thought it was fine. I think there's a couple of things that we're going to keep seeing, and I think the Iron Man thing is getting overused a bit, where we have to have somebody start at the very beginning that's at the end. That gets kind of super used, and I think there were a significant number of blown high spots that they tried for this year, and they've really got to cut back on these jump transitions between cameras. Like that makes it kind of, at times, it's kind of hard to watch. And some of the spots where they were doing on the ropes and the near eliminations and stuff had terrible angles. So I don't think it was directed as well as usual. It's my favorite thing that happens in wrestling altogether. That's fine. It was fine. I think we differ on one point. I think that it actually started much better than a lot of Rumbles that I remember, right? I think a lot of years they used they would have started with like NXT guys or smaller guys or guys that don't get on TV so that they can get eliminated early, and then bring in the mid-tier guys to kind of carry to the heavyweights coming late. But this year they started it different, right? Or the hardcore guys. I don't know if you remember that year where we had the Rumble where it was nothing but hardcore guys for the first like 20, and they all just beat the crap out of each other and eliminated each other. This year, it felt a little bit different. I thought they front loaded some real talent, some guys that were fun to watch, and I thought it was pretty entertaining all the way through, from start to finish, from a from a talent perspective.
Yeah, I thought the Rumble. It's like the one thing I kept saying at the end of the night. And again, thanks Rick for having the wife and I over to watch the Rumble with you guys. But one thing I said at the end of the night as we were getting ready to leave is I was thoroughly sports entertained. Yeah, we do differ a little because I thought the first half of the match started a little slow. I mean, there were some big heavy hitters, and I'll list off some of the early participants here in just a second. But it wasn't until Brock came in at 12, about a little over the third of the way, almost halfway through, that I think things really started to pick up. But I mean, they did start out with heavy hitters. I mean, Gunther came in at number 1 and was the Iron Man, lasting a brand new record of 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 40 seconds.
Which you
followed by Sheamus at number 2, The Miz at 3, Kofi Kingston at 4, Johnny Gargano at 5, Xavier Woods at 6, Karrion Kross at 7, Chad Gable at 8, Drew McIntyre at 9, and coming in at number 10 was Santos Escobar. Now, were there anything early on? Now, one of the notes I did put on was ring was too crowded at times, especially early on, because I felt like it wasn't until Brock came in at 12 that things really started to pick up. He came in and eliminated a few people right off the bat before his ultimate elimination. You did have the big Kofi spot. Every year they do the big Kofi spot where he's got to do this big save. Xavier Woods had gotten tossed out by Gunther. And then he had like one of the announcers' chairs there. And unfortunately, when Kofi came out of the ring and tried to land on the chair for the save, he ended up collapsing in pretty brutal fashion. Any other notes you have there from the early stages?
Yeah, the Kofi chair spot it just looked bad. And it's been done. So I think we are getting to the point where let's try not to kill Kofi.
Yeah.
I think we're fine with that. I think him actually in the Rumble was great. Him on the mat, wrestling early on was actually entertaining. I thought it carried them through the first 10. Kofi was very good. Kind of surprised when Shorty G came in. He looked really good. A lot of the suplexes and stuff he was doing were pretty tight. And then Gunther was. I hadn't seen a lot of Gunther because I didn't watch the NXT for a couple of years, and he was very fun to watch. I'd love to watch him with some of these big guys out there, I got pretty excited by the time Brock and them were coming out, seeing all of them together, and comparing his size to everybody else. The dude's fit, so I think it's pretty much like
he had lost a lot of weight in that last year before being called up to the main roster. I mean, he looks really fit. And then one of the big, I wrote Brock with all exclamation points. And then the very next note I made was Brock versus Walter, please, with a ton of exclamation points. I would love nothing more than for Brock and Walter to go heads up. They had a good stare down for a couple minutes. So they had a nice stare down. We didn't really get a lot of it. So, we got to tease. If nothing else, we got to tease maybe setting up something later for WrestleMania down the line. Yeah. But I thought that was just such a cool moment to see those guys. But Shorty G is always hilarious. Chad Gable coming in with the shoes. She was shooshing people. It was, Chad Gable Suplex City there for a while and then shooshing people. He had a real he wasn't in the Rumble very long, only 8 minutes and 42 seconds. But he made a memorable impact on the actual Rumble itself. But then let's move up here. We got coming in at number 11 in the Rumble was Angelo Dawkins. And then, of course, the aforementioned Brock Lesnar in at number 12. Followed up at number 13 by Bobby Lashley. Let's pause here for a sec to talk about Bobby. When you thought business was going to pick up with Brock only did get 3 eliminations. But Bobby comes in, and it's like the game had changed at that point.
Yeah.
And of course, Bobby eliminates Brock, setting up maybe another potential Mania match. He did attack him on SmackDown this past week. He eliminates him. It was Bobby's one and only elimination in the Rumble. What are your thoughts on a perspective of maybe a Lashley Lesnar match at Mania this year?
I'd be excited for it. I like Lashley a lot. I feel like through the years, every time you come back and you see Lashley get into something, with specifically with a big guy, with somebody with that much talent that can do different things. I think Lashley just looks like $1 million every time, man. I think he's getting better and better. I think I'd watch him with anybody right now.
Yeah, he's quickly over the last couple of years since the whole pandemic thing has been something that I've really started to come around on Bobby Lashley. You know, especially it started with like the Hurt Business, and then the break off from that. I wasn't a big fan of the whole Omos thing, but Omos and Lashley, but he's really come around. The fans get behind him. You know, the fans get behind Brock too. Everybody loves Brock,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that would be, you know, it was something subtle and simple. Brock only lasted 2 minutes and 28 seconds in the Rumble itself,
Mm-hmm.
but he did get 3 eliminations in quick succession. And
Somebody had
then,
to.
let's see, he ended up eliminating Chad Gable. He eliminated Santos Escobar and Angelo Dawkins very quickly. And then, of course, gets tossed out by Bobby Lashley, which is oddly enough his one and only elimination. I thought they might have given him a little bit more. Lashley only lasted 7 minutes and 14 seconds himself, so he wasn't in there very long. So my thought process is that Lashley, the whole thing with Brock and then Lashley coming right after is to set up something, either an Elimination Chamber, but my preference is hopefully WrestleMania.
Yeah, I got at that part I got really excited because and we had talked about it, like this is basically a dream elimination chamber match, right? At one point we had them all
Mhm.
there. We had Drew, we had Brock, we had Gunther, we had Bobby Lashley. I'd throw Karrion Kross in there. I thought he looked really good, so he would have been good in that match. But yeah, it just looked like a lot of man for a really great kind of elimination chamber style match. Just a destruction.
Oh yeah, and BuzzTube TV, thank you for joining live over on YouTube, buddy. It says at the Rumble, Phoenix Edge return to take out Judgment Day. How can you describe them surviving finishing spear? We will get to that when we get to the Edge and stuff later in the match, so stay tuned. We'll talk about that when we get there here shortly. But moving on into the entrance, coming in at 14 was Baron Corbin, who only lasted a mere 7 seconds,
Mm. Yeah.
which is pretty sad. Coming in at 15 was Seth freaking Rollins. And then number 16 was Omos. We'll talk about Omos here in a second. But then number 17 and 18 is where I think my next big chunk of memorable things happened. At number 17, we had the music play of none other than Mr. 619 himself, Rey Mysterio. He does not come out. The music played for 30 seconds to a minute. Nothing happened, and then we get another countdown after. We don't know if sure it was 90 seconds or 2 minutes for this one. We get another countdown, and out comes Dominic Mysterio. Dominic having Rey Mysterio's mask. Rey never entered the Rumble, and my big note for this section is Dominic was trying to rip the mask apart and just couldn't rip the mask apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 19, we got Elias, and then we'll pause here again at number 20 with Finn Balor. Rick, what anything you have here for this middle section in the like 15 to 20 range?
The Dominic spot was great. Ray not coming out, that's some pretty major heel heat, to come out and actually keep Rey Mysterio out of a Royal Rumble. That's huge. And yeah, he came out. I like the swagger and everything from him coming out. This is the point for me where I think there isn't a lot going on. Seth is coming out. Seth is doing some pretty good stuff. The Dominic story is pretty good. I think this part feels slow because of how long the walk to the ring is. So at this point, they're trying to play up and tell different stories, right? We've got Baron Corbin's getting beat up outside. It's comical. And then Seth Rollins takes 1,000,000 years to get to the ring. Ray doesn't even come out. They just keep showing the entrance of nobody. And then Dom takes 1,000,000 years to get down there. It's just, there's so much of them showing the entrance to the ring that there was a point where we had so much going on in the ring that we didn't see because of what we were watching outside, if that makes sense. But yeah, I got excited. Balor coming out. Dom was out. I just wish Dom was a little bit tougher.
Yeah, I think they're really playing into that whole. He's trying to act tough, but he's really just chicken shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Baron Corbin comes out. At this point, Lesnar's still at ringside. He had thrown the ring steps, onto the announcer table. And then he, of course, attacks Baron Corbin while he's outside. So he laid out there for a solid 2 minutes until Seth came in. He gets in the ring. Seth's already in there, and he literally lasts for 7 seconds. Omos, or sorry, I completely. I was Otis that came in at 16, not Omos. My eyes are playing. So Otis comes in. He does some stuff. He does his little caterpillar. I hope this ultimately ends with like Dom versus Rhea at like WrestleMania, because my prediction going into the Rumble was Dom's going to come out and he's going to eliminate Rhea, or Rhea's going to eliminate Dom, and it's going to set up something for WrestleMania down the line. But we never even got to see Rhea compete, which I'll take a pause here, because if you remember at the very end, I'm sure everybody knows by now, so there's no spoilers. Cody Rhodes won the Rumble. He leaped over the top rope to exit the ring. Rey Mysterio never entered the Rumble. So therefore, technically, if Rey walks and gets in that ring, he would technically be the Royal Rumble winner. By a technical standpoint, kind of like how Curtis Axel never got eliminated in like 2014, and he never got his Rumble moment. But had some good stuff. Things started to pick up because Dominic did get some backup at number 20 with Finn Balor. And then the only real major returnee coming in at number 21, the 5-time former WCW champion, Booker T, makes his way in. And then at 22, we get the other member of Judgment Day, Damian Priest. And here's where kind of things get interesting, because the Judgment Day all linked up and they started to kind of dominate a little bit and cause some chaos in the ring. Then number 23, we get Montez Ford. And then one we all thought would be there, but I guess it was a surprise. We get none other than the Rated R superstar, Edge, making his triumphant return to the company. We'll pause here for a second. Rick, anything from this section? You got Edge coming back to get his revenge on the Judgment Day, going after Dom, going after Finn, going after Priest. What did you think?
I think the timing of it all was really good. Just that part now, right? Like we just came off of this. Everyone's taking forever to get to the ring, like I was just talking about. But then Balor comes out, right? And then we got Damian Priest two guys later. And so over the course of 5 people, we have Judgment Day come in. We get Judgment Day beating up some people, getting a couple of eliminations, and then we've got Edge coming out. It's a very quick story told over the course of 6 people entering the Rumble. And all at one time, we've got Rey doesn't show up. We've got, Dom is just, clowning everybody about it, trying to rip his mask. And then we've got Balor running in and tearing stuff up. Damian Priest getting eliminations. And then we have Edge's return. And then Edge, tears him up. So you tell a lot of stories in a very short amount of time. And that's a great way to play the Rumble.
Yeah, there's a lot that happened after Edge gets in. He tosses out Finn Balor. He tosses out Damian Priest. He goes to toss out Dom, but does not get Dom out. Finn ends up coming back and pulling Edge over the top. Edge only lasting 1 minute and 4 seconds. But it's obvious, with like you said, they did a lot in such a short amount of time. They're really setting up more for Edge to continue the feud with the Judgment Day. They had a brawl in the entranceway. Rhea Ripley comes out and get involved, only for Mrs. Edge, the Glamazon Beth Phoenix, to come out, spears Rhea Ripley to save her husband, and then they walk off tall. So I'm assuming that they are setting up something for Elimination Chamber or maybe WrestleMania, where you're going to have Edge and Beth Phoenix taking on some combination, probably Dom and Rhea Ripley, or Finn and Damian Priest, some kind of combination. Some kind of mixed tag match between Edge and Beth Phoenix and members of the Judgment Day. My guess would be this would be an Elimination Chamber thing, and they set up Rey and Dominic for WrestleMania. Or if they do the mixed tag at WrestleMania, do they have enough story to prolong Dom and Rey to like SummerSlam? because that would be the next major event after WrestleMania.
It's been a long run so far, right? This has been a long story. This is the kind of thing you tie up at WrestleMania. You don't go past it with this.
Yeah.
So I think you keep that separate at WrestleMania, and I think Rhea's going to have other plans for WrestleMania. So I think this is everyone's going to be super involved together come Elimination Chamber. That'll probably be where the group story gets told, and then the individual plays out at WrestleMania. That's when everything is settled.
So we get down to the final six entrants, excuse me. We have number 25, A-Town Down, Austin Theory makes his entrance. Then to number 26, we get Omos. Number 27, the Monster Among Men, Braun Strowman. 28, Ricochet. 29, I guess the third surprise, because we weren't sure, whether or not he'd be back. He apparently injured himself at the Dirty Saudi Blood Money show against Roman Reigns. Mm-hmm. Logan Paul makes his entrance at 29, and coming in at the coveted number 30 spot, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Logan Paul coming in at 29. Oh, actually, let me back up. Like Omos and Braun Strowman, which I had a feeling when one came in, the other was going to be right behind him. There was going to be, a lot between them. I have a feeling they're going to work towards a match, maybe at Chamber. Or they postponed this all the way to WrestleMania. It's hard to tell. But they got in it real quick. And then Ricochet and Logan Paul. That is probably one of the craziest Royal Rumble moments I have ever seen. If you haven't seen it, go out of your way to check that spot out. Ricochet is on one side of the ring. Logan Paul's on the other side of the ring. And they both do springboards off the top rope, collide middle of the ring. Both of these guys flew over 10 feet to meet each other in the middle of the ring. And it was just absolutely insane. Rick, what are your thoughts on this as we get down to the ending here of the Royal Rumble?
So we got that. We get a couple of good spots here, right? That in particular was probably everyone's favorite moment of the match. Anybody who's going to talk about it is going to talk about that because they hit solid too. There was no fear. They went for it. They went hard. They hit the right way, midsection. It took the air out of me watching it. It was just awesome. Gotta see it. And then, I liked Cody Rhodes foiling the Three Amigos for Dom. That was a good spot as well. Logan's buckshot looks good. He's doing a good job with that. I mean, he's just a flippy dude. But yeah, I mean, it looks good coming down to the end. And interestingly enough, this wouldn't be the first time for the night, but you actually called Gunther from start to finish. You said that he was going to be right there at the end, and you also called the winner. So, I mean, kudos to you. That was
I think
great.
One thing I've noticed, and I guess I can put this in here while we're talking about it, is a lot of people thought the Rumble wasn't enjoyable because it was too predictable. I mean, Cody is realistic. If you look at the other, 29 men, there might be 3 or 4 guys you could say have, an okay shot. But realistically, at the end of the day, the only man that really makes sense to win is Cody Rhodes. So, I mean, it's easy to predict it. But my thing is, wrestling can be predictable as long as they tell a good story. And I thought they told a great story because there was little smaller stories that happened, spotted throughout the Rumble. Yeah, the overarching story of, Gunther being in there all the way till the end. The one thing I will say about it is Cody and Gunther at the very end took entirely too long. They almost had their own match at the end. I don't remember. I wish I would have timed how much time that took for when it was just down to 2. But Cody ultimately picks up the win, lasting 15 minutes and 8 seconds after he came in. So that's how long he was in there, over 15 minutes for everybody else to get eliminated. And then ultimately Gunther to get eliminated. Let's run down the time. So, of course, Gunther was the Iron Man at 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 40 seconds. Second, who also entered second, Sheamus, lasting 52 minutes, 33 seconds. Drew McIntyre coming in at number 9, lasting 39 minutes and 10 seconds. Seth lasting 37:18. And number 5, someone we haven't even really talked about yet, Johnny Gargano, Johnny Wrestling, Johnny Rumble, lasting just under 30 minutes at 29:57. And the only other person with any significant time was Dominic at 25:44. And then Austin Theory and Cody were around 15 minutes, and then everybody else from there. And of course, the shortest time in the Rumble, not including Rey Mysterio, Baron Corbin at a measly 7 seconds. For eliminations, Gunther and Cody tying for the most with 5 each. Drew with 4. Sheamus and Brock Lesnar with 3. And then Seth, Finn, and Edge with 2 apiece. And then 1 elimination apiece to Dom, Austin Theory, Braun Strowman, Logan Paul, Bobby Lashley, and Damian Priest. That is your men's Rumble in a nutshell. Anything you want to add before we move on from the card? Anything else you want to talk about Rumble-wise for the men's side?
All right, so here's the unpopular opinion, right? This is too much, too fast for Cody Rhodes. I'm not ready for this. I think there's a lot of other things that could be done. A Cody story could develop. I mean, I'm sorry he got hurt. Him coming out of Seth and working another program to hit this spot would have been probably fine. But they should have done something else. When he gets hurt, you do something else. You hold this off because it's not a good look. Cody Rhodes leaving AEW. When Cody Rhodes was at his best, he was putting over MJF, and it looked amazing. It set up MJF, and MJF owes everything to Cody Rhodes for the way that he handled him. Cody Rhodes turned when he started putting himself over everyone else, when he starts putting himself over Aleister Black. And, he starts to take these guys that were coming from WWE and showing and putting AEW on them. And the fans don't like it. Fans turned on him. They turned on everything that was going on. So here's mid-card Cody Rhodes, trying to steamroll the mid-carders coming in from WWE, and just not that far afterwards, he gets Seth Rollins, and then he gets the Royal Rumble win. He gets the 30 spot coming in. He gets the most eliminations. He gets lined up for the match against Roman Reigns for WrestleMania. He's going to headline WrestleMania. And if he wins the title there, you just go, what happened? How did this happen? So that's my thoughts, man. That's just how I feel about it.
I've never really thought that way, and that never really looked at it that way. But I think one thing that I think hurt Cody is the injury. Had he not had that injury and been able to tell stories for the last 6-7 months, that's probably would make a huge difference in a lot of people's eyes. But there's a lot of people out there who have like for me, like when Cody left WWE, I was like, yeah, who cares? I wasn't a Cody fan at all. When I was watching it, like being the Elite in the start of AEW, I was like, I don't like Cody Rhodes. Like, I don't get it. I don't see the appeal, why everybody loved him so much. And then, like you said, then eventually in AEW, everybody turned on him. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until he came to WWE and then I started seeing all these interviews. His interview on the Broken Skull Sessions with Steve Austin is what absolutely changed my opinion of Cody Rhodes. When you hear him talk wrestling, when you hear him talk about his past and what he's gone through, it was enough to completely change my opinion. But I'm a huge Cody Rhodes fan. I think he's awesome. I'm glad he's back. I'm glad he's getting a main, spotlight. At first, I thought, they might continue this feud with Seth, even though he beat Seth 3 times last year in 3 consecutive pay-per-views. So I didn't know what the point would be to continue that after all this time. And they may do a little program leading into WrestleMania, so that way it's not, 3 months of Roman versus Cody feud leading into the WrestleMania match, because we don't need it. There's a lot of other stuff going on with Roman that, of course, we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, I think I get what you're saying, and I can kind of agree with that. But at the same time, it's like, who else would it be? Like, there's not anybody else I think WWE has that they could put in a position other than like a Sami Zayn. But again, we'll talk about the Sami stuff, later on in the show. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of people out there that feel just like you do, that it's just too much too soon. I mean, I get why people would think that. But, all right. So nothing else Rumble-wise. So let's segue into match number 2. Bray Wyatt versus LA Knight, the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match. going into this, nobody knew what the Pitch Black match was. It was sponsored by Mountain Dew. That's all we knew. It was based off their Pitch Black flavor, which usually I thought came out around Halloween, but I guess it's coming out around January. All's the match ended up looking like a blacklight match. It looked like it came straight out of like Joel Schumacher's Batman.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing, I only had a couple notes from this because I just kind of was not interested at all. They announced LA Knight from Los Angeles and no longer Hagerstown. So goodbye, Hagerstown's finest. I mean, that was the one thing I love more like about LA Knight because he's kind of a local guy. I mean, for those who don't know, Hagerstown, Maryland is only about 40 minutes from us.
Yep.
If that, depending on how fast you drive. So it was cool to always hear, from Hagerstown, Maryland. And the other big note I have from this is Bray's entrance was just entirely too long.
Oh my God.
Entirely too long. It's very cool. The visuals are cool with all the fireflies, the lights up in the arena, but it just took way too long. Any thoughts with the entrances, anything like that going into the match?
God, so much of this pay-per-view is just people trying to get to the ring to do wrestling. Like, it's just, it was so much. It was just, there was so much to it. The pop for Bray was amazing. The Pitch Black thing, when they did the promos and stuff and they showed it, of course, they indicated that it was some sort of a blackout situation, and then it turns into a black light situation. So it almost feels like you're misled. And I looked at it and said, this is just a stupid idea until they got wrestling. And then I was like, but it's really cool. So I thought it looked cool. His tats looked awesome. The black light looked great on him. And LA Knight's gear lit up. That was kind of cool. The kendo stick looked great. The corner spot where he grabbed him by the throat was probably my highlight of the match. I thought that was awesome. Don't like what they're doing to LA Knight for no reason. I mean, you could have had anybody in here get this treatment. Unless he's being part of another story with Bray, this was just a terrible thing to do to him when it could have been anybody at a Royal Rumble spot. And that's really all I got. We had Howdy Doody jumping off the top of the thing, so that's cool. I don't know, man.
I'm like you. Like I really like LA Knight. Yeah. And the only thing I'm hoping is that being in a program with Bray helps elevate him and put more eyes on him that otherwise might not have been on him. So that is my one big hope, is that through this match, it elevates LA Knight to the next level. But like you said, anybody could have been in this match. They could have had Elias do this match. They could have had any of the other 15 guys, like a Dolph Ziggler who wasn't even in the Rumble. There were a lot of guys that weren't in the Rumble that they could have put in this match. So my thought process is they trusted LA Knight enough to help get this new version of Bray Wyatt over. But like you said, Bray's face paint, the paint looked really cool under the lights. The tattoos, LA Knights had the yellow gear and it just really glowed in the black light. The rings were highlighted by black lights. The kendo stick was cool. The table spot I thought was pretty cool, except for the random lime green, fluorescent green glitter that kind of went everywhere after that. I thought that was a little odd, but it was visually, it looked cool. I imagine if you watched this match tripping on acid, you were in heaven. And then, after the match, Bray picked up the win. They're fighting out to the stage area where they have a musical performance later, and then Uncle Howdy jumping off one of the lighting rigs. It was a pretty cool moment with the flames and stuff going off. It was one of those things. It's like, if you're into that sort of thing, you probably loved it. If it's not your bag of chips, you're probably indifferent or didn't like it. I thought it was entertaining. But my biggest concern, like I've said, is just LA Knight post Royal Rumble match with Bray. What do they do with him next? Because the guy's extremely talented, and he's proven it in this build of this match with Bray that he is a major player in WWE. And I'm just hoping that this doesn't kind of put him back in the pecking order and is kind of a launching pad that he shows he can hang with the big guys. He can hang with the big guns in WWE, and he's proved it with this feud with Bray. And the match I was kind of indifferent, but that's just my personal taste. But anything else blacklight related you want to chat about?
I I think going forward, I mean, what you do with him, one of two things you want to do with him at this point, right? Either he joins Bray Wyatt in this thing that they've got going on somehow, coming from uh, from Howdy jumping on him, and or he goes away for a while on an injury related to Howdy dropping on top of him, and then yeah, comes back fired up and is gets into a much better program later on with him in a few months. Like something that builds at SummerSlam or something like that
No, it's
later.
funny you say that because every time when Bray was doing the Fiend gimmick, anytime he had a match with someone, it changed them. It's
Hmm.
Seth. Every time. So I'm hoping they don't try to continue that with LA Knight where it changes him. They could have him join, kind of be put under his trance like Alexa Bliss. They're
Hmm.
playing that storyline up again. There's a whole rumor of the Wyatt Six faction because that was his Twitter handle. So I mean, you have Bray, you have Uncle Howdy, you have Alexa, who's still kind of involved. Where they add LA Knight to make it 4. It'll be interesting. I'm curious to see. SmackDown should be interesting if there's any follow up because sometimes with these stories, they'll take a week or two off and then bring it back. So we'll see Friday. We'll see Friday if we get anything Bray related. So I'll be interested to see what was going on there. Moving on to match number 3, which is, oh, by the way, that match only went 5 minutes and 5 seconds. It was very short. But speaking of short matches, match number 3, kind of the lull in the middle of the show, the Raw Women's Championship match, the EST, Bianca Belair defeating Alexa Bliss via pinfall. The match only goes 7.5 minutes. The only thing I wrote for this match was nothing special. It seemed like a TV match. But the majority of the stuff that I really want to talk about comes after the match. Bianca hitting the KOD for the win. Rick, anything you want to talk about as far as the match itself?
Bianca Belair looked bored. She looked like, I mean, there's so much talent on the women's side right now, and I know you need to pull all of them and put them into the Royal Rumble because you have to find 30. So I know I kind of get that where you're just gonna have this match, but they're trying to tell an Alexa story, and they're using one of your top people to tell a story that's unrelated to them. It just Alexa should not be fighting Bianca Belair. She shouldn't be. She's just if she's going to be there, it needs to be a fatal 4-way. I mean, there needs to be more people in there to give Bianca something to do because Bianca's too good. She's too good, and it looked like a big waste of time. It felt like what they just did with Bray, where they could have fed him anybody. And it's literally like they brought in Alexa for her to lose to Bianca Belair so that Alexa can tell her story on Rumble. Like I don't know. I didn't like it. I don't think most people will.
Yeah, I mean everything I've seen online, perusing social media this morning, was all about after the match.
Right.
Bianca wins, she goes off, and then we get the spooky video packages, very similar to the other ones we've seen already on Raw with Alexa Bliss. Uncle Howdy leading the charge in these video packages. Lots of clips from her time under the Fiend's trance from 2 years ago. I was really hoping when Alexa came back, and she disappeared for a little while. When she came back several months ago, I was really hoping that we'd be past this and that she could kind of go back to being her little, I don't know what kind of cheerleader, Harley Quinn looking. I don't know how you describe what her gimmick was, but I hope she was kind of going back to something similar. But she still had this edge to her. Had an attitude. She stood up on the commentator's table the other week on Raw and cut a promo before one of these video packages. And she's the one saying she's in control, but obviously the Firefly crew has other plans for Little Miss Bliss. But they're setting up something. I mean, I don't know what you. I mean, the Fiend and Alexa stuff wasn't very good the last time around, and I'm really not sure what the point is of rehashing all of this all over again. All kind of abruptly ended when Bray Wyatt got released.
Yeah.
And now that he's back and doing his thing, although be it no Fiend, but still the Funhouse and other stuff, I'm really curious to how this goes forward. And I don't know. I'm not really into this stuff. it was fun during the Thunderdome era when you could pre-record stuff, but now everything's live. What do you really do with it? What do you really do with, these kind of things? You can't do the spooky stuff all the time, but
yeah, it
that's
feels like a
just my
story
2
they were.
cents.
Yeah, it feels like a story they tried to tell before and didn't get a
Mhm.
chance to. So now they're like, now we're finally going to do it, and everybody's like, we're over it. It's
Yeah.
fine. Sorry, you guys missed the boat, but we'll move on.
Yeah, it's like 2 years too late.
Yep.
Well, let's get into the penultimate match. It is the Women's Royal Rumble match. And oddly enough, there's a lot I remember. I only have one note, and it's for the very end of the match. But and yes, since you already mentioned earlier, number one was Rhea Ripley, number two, Liv Morgan. And I said very early from the start, like literally as they're both making their entrances, I could see these two being at the end. Like the star power in the Women's Rumble match just wasn't there this year. It was a great match. I thought the women's match was probably better than the men's match this year. But yes, I did call Rhea and Liv being in at the end. They enter in at 1 and 2. Dana Brooke 3, Emma at 4, Shayna Baszler at 5. We'll make a pause here. Is there anything early on in the women's match that stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, you called it. All right, that was really impressive. That was the first thing you said as soon as they announced, as soon as they announced the two of them, they were coming to the ring. You were like, "Yep, they're the two that are going to be at the end." And it did make sense.
Prognosticator of all prognosticators.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. But yeah, the Dana Brooke coming out was probably the biggest letdown of the entire Rumble. Like it was such a weird moment. Like she's gonna come, like she's got to come out. It's just 30 people, and everybody's busy right now. So you're like, what are we gonna do with her? And yeah, so she comes out, but she comes out and it still just feels like her. Like really could have done something else at 3. Like Shayna coming out at 3 would have looked better, and then you save Dana after a couple of people get out there. But having her come out at 3 and like kind of it almost feels like it's a showcase spot that she was in, and it was deflating. But yeah, I mean, other than that, yeah, I liked how it jumped. I liked how it jumped off. It was fine.
Yeah, I mean, Shayna, one thing I talked about when she came in at 5 was, and we both talked about this throughout the early parts of the match when she was in there, how wasted she's been since her call up to the main roster.
Yeah, absolutely.
They really dropped the ball with her because she was, so dominant in NXT, put on great matches in NXT. She gets called up to the main roster and then she can't win a match.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, I don't know. I was hoping for a little bit more from Shayna. She didn't really do much in the women's match. She did last about 13 and a half minutes, but no eliminations. Let's pick up the next little section here because I think this is when the women's match really started to pick up. You get Bayley at 6, B-Fab from Hit Row coming in at 7. One of the many surprise entrants because the women only had half the field announced ahead of time. Current women's NXT champion Roxanne Perez in at 8. And then at 9 and 10, we get the other two members of Damage Control, Dakota Kai and Io Sky. And we get Natalya making her long-awaited return at 8. The Poison Pixie, Candice LeRae at 12. Another NXT surprise was very nice, Zoe Stark at 13. And then Xia Li at 14. And then we'll pause here because here's where the next couple set of big names come out at 15. But anything in this section, I know when Damage Control was all in the ring at the same time, they pretty much ran roughshod over a big majority of the middle section of this match, and I thought it was really good seeing all three of them work together.
That was great. Yeah, it was great. It really kind of set them up, kind of similar to the way that they did with Judgment Day, right? Bring them all in within a couple of people, let them dominate, and then tell that story right there. And of course, we're about to see where this was leading. But a couple of notes that I did have was it seemed like B-Fab was getting punished for something. Like, I don't know what it was, but she came in and just got destroyed by Rhea. Like, it was kind of comical, really. But yeah, up until this point, Damage Control is the story of the match. So
yep, yeah. B-Fab only lasted 36 seconds. She was actually the first woman eliminated. 7th in, first out. I don't know if it was punishment, but I don't think she's a very accomplished in-ring worker. She's mainly been used as kind of a managerial role. I don't want to say arm candy because that's not really the right term, but she's kind of just been a member of a stable that doesn't really wrestle a lot. But seeing Roxanne Perez in there, you know, she only lasted 4.5 minutes before being eliminated by Damage Control. But it was nice to see her. Unfortunately, you know, she's the one who ended Mandy Rose's long reign as NXT Women's Champion before she was unceremoniously released from the company for selling butthole pictures on the internet. So, I mean, but then things really start to kick into high gear at number 15 when the man comes around. Becky Lynch makes her entrance into the Rumble and immediately goes right after Bayley and Damage Control. Then we get Tegan Nox at 16. Then we get Asuka coming in with a brand new look, which I thought was very cool. I'll talk more about that here in just a second. Piper Niven, the former Doudrop, so she has been able to drop the Doudrop name. She's back to Piper Niven. She came in at 18. Tamina at 19. And then we'll pause here for another huge return, which I marked out good for this one. Chelsea Green making her return to the company, being entered in at number 20. What did you think when Becky come in and you got Becky versus Bayley and Damage Control, which is like kind of the next story they told here in the women's match?
I was really excited and then really disappointed immediately. Becky Lynch coming in, it looks like this is going to be the high point of the entire Rumble, and then Becky gets tossed out, and then she lays on the floor. And then you go, well, okay, that was fun. So we'll just have to wait for her to get up, I guess. But then, yeah, by the time like Chelsea Green comes in, and she comes in a great spot because that's when we get a ton of action of everybody. Becky's back in, everybody's in it at this point. It's just, this is the best part of their Rumble was right here, I thought.
Yeah, Becky, she got to take the nap on the outside of the ring this year. Her and Damage Control would constantly battle. They went under the ropes. They put her through the table, and then she just kind of took a nap. She was only in the match technically for 10 minutes and 45 seconds, and probably 8 of those minutes she spent on the outside, you know, resting. I know at one point you could see Rhea Ripley kind of taking a nap on top of the steps, which I thought was interesting. That kind of took place in here. And seeing Piper Niven come back as Piper Niven, I thought was really cool. I liked her in NXT UK as Piper Niven, and the whole Doudrop thing I wasn't a fan of, but it's nice to see that they have a new direction for her going forward. And then Asuka coming in, Evil Asuka. There's a name for that character, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But it's the way I describe it is, if you remember like Abaddon from AEW, her brief run, that's what this Evil Asuka character is. Kind of similar in the same vein as Abaddon, and I think it's a fresh reset for Asuka, who's kind of been stale over the last few years. She's one of my favorite female wrestlers in WWE, so it's nice to see a nice fresh reset for the Empress of Tomorrow. And then Chelsea Green coming in, only lasting 5 seconds, which is a new Rumble record. And I had seen something earlier in the day yesterday where they had talked about that she was coming back and that she would be playing some type of Karen character. And there's no better way to kick off the ultimate WWE Karen than only lasting 5 seconds in the Rumble. So I'm really looking forward to see what the next step is for Chelsea Green. All right, so let's pick up the next couple entrants here. We have Zelina Vega in at 21, Raquel Rodriguez in at 22, Mia Yim at 23, Lacey Evans at 24, and another big surprise, Mrs. Undertaker, Michelle McCool in at 25. I thought it was really cool because they played her music because they had already shown her in the crowd earlier in the night sitting front row with the kids. So I'm like, well, Taker's there. She's sitting front row with the kids. Her music plays and the camera cuts over and she's like, oh, I guess I'll get in the match. She takes her jacket off, hops over the rail, and jumps in the ring.
Somebody watch my kids.
Yes, just keep an eye on the kids for me, would you please? But is there anything in this little section here that you want to talk about? I know you were picking Raquel Rodriguez as your pick to win.
Yeah, I picked her early. I was cheering for Asuka. At this point, Michelle McCool looked awesome coming in. Lacey looked great too. She looks like she's been training a good bit. She looked pretty crisp on a lot of the stuff that she was doing too. So I was pretty excited because I thought people surprised me at this point. I think there's a lot more talent going on. I think people are training hard and they're looking really good right now. So yeah, at this point, I'm literally surprised by how good the Rumble's going for not knowing more than half of the people at one point. You know, like
Mm,
for the people coming out, knowing them from some NXT work, and that's about it. And just, I felt like it was just not going to be a very fun Rumble. But and then especially with Becky's out taking a nap and all this stuff, it looks like it. You just think you think when people describe it, like, man, that must have been a boring Rumble. But I mean, everybody really held themselves up on this. It was really good.
mm. Yeah, the cool thing I like too is, I'm a big Raquel Gonzalez fan, Raquel Rodriguez. I liked her stuff in NXT. Her feud with Rhea Ripley in NXT was awesome. See, that's where I think we differ. Is I was watching that era of NXT where a lot of these people were coming up.
Mhm.
So it allowed me a little more familiarity with them, even though they're not all the same when it switches over to the main roster, but it's still pretty cool. The one thing I would say, Lacey Evans, she has this military gimmick, you will salute me, sitting up on the ropes, doing the salute. Of course, they make the, military veteran, the evil person, anti-America, it's going to get everybody to boo her, which you would think with someone with the military, an American military gimmick would be the baby face, but they obviously have her as a blatant heel. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of that, but I'm going to let it play out before I really pass judgment on it. It's always cool to see Michelle McCool come back. I was more particular to her tag partner, Layla, back in the day of Lay Cool.
Yeah.
But I thought that was all really nice. Good to see Mia Yim in there mixing it up. Um, there's a lot of women that had a lot of longevity in this match. But let's move on to the last set here. The next set. I'm gonna save number 30 for the end because that was just too good. Number 26 from NXT, we have Indy Hartwell. 27, Sonya Deville. 28, Shotzi Blackheart. And then at number 29, Nikki Cross, who came in guns a-blazing, fists of fury, going absolutely nuts there at number 29. Shotzi came out with her taking care of business, the TCB tank, which I thought was cool that they've allowed her to have that back. I don't know if you saw, but I saw over on Instagram after the match, Sonya Deville was split, had a huge split right above her eyebrow. So I don't remember where it happened. I didn't see it in the match, but she had to get a few stitches over her eyebrow, which I thought was pretty crazy. And then number 30, and this, to me, this is the epitome of just, I don't know if this was done on purpose or not. If it was, kudos to the WWE team, but the countdown's getting ready to start. It came up 10, 9, and then Nia Jax's music starts right as the 10 hits the screen. And I'm like, of all people, the woman who's botched so much, who's hurt so many women, they botch her entrance into the Royal Rumble at number 30. And I just got a big kick out of that.
It's hilarious.
What about you here as we lead into the ending of the Women's Rumble here?
I think so. Yeah, that wasn't real, right? That pop that they put out there. I mean, that wasn't real.
Oh no, definitely.
Everyone.
She didn't get the react. That had to be a piped in crowd noise at that point.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, so the Nia Jax 30 is just almost felt like it was designed to be the thing that everybody goes, oh, like, really? Okay. Like, it was just meant to be this comical thing to happen for her to come in. And of course, nobody's on her side. And of course, it is what it is. So it was kind of a funny spot. I looking back on it, a couple of minutes after it happened, I actually really enjoyed it. It was pretty funny to see because they didn't give her like a long run or anything. So there's nothing really to get upset about that. And I was still I really enjoyed Lacey's work in there as a heel. I get that I get that we are always doing the military thing. But yeah, I mean, the Sergeant Slaughter kind of callback, right? And then she did the Cobra Clutch, which was great here over at this point. Yeah, I thought that they carried it out pretty good. I liked what they did with Nia. And then from here, it just keeps getting better. The ending of this just picks up from there.
Yeah, Nia goes out at number 19, being eliminated by everybody in the ring at the time, including Asuka, Lacey Evans, Liv Morgan, Mia Yim, Michelle McCool, Nikki Cross, Piper Niven, Raquel Rodriguez, Rhea Ripley, Shotzi, and Sonya Deville. So she got ganged up on by like a dozen women, everybody that was left in the ring at that point, just to toss her out. She only lasted a minute 57. But then we get down, of course, to the very end. And as we said about a couple of times, Rhea and Liv is the final two. with Asuka in there at 3. And I thought the ending to the women's match was good because, I mean, obviously, I still was thinking it was going to be Rhea because I think it made the most sense. Asuka's already won. Rhea hasn't won a Rumble yet. You know, Liv was cool as SmackDown champion, but I don't think it kind of had the effect that, you know, some people had thought it would. I thought she was a decent champion, you know, even though she was unceremoniously beaten by Ronda who would then all lose to, you know, Charlotte. But I figure, you know, Rhea was made the most sense. They did the miss spot on the ring apron with all 3 women on the ring apron, Rhea ducking, Asuka hitting Liv with the miss, Rhea eliminating Asuka, and then it looked like there for a minute a blind Liv Morgan was going to do the unthinkable and eliminate Rhea Ripley, only for Rhea to do this crazy head scissors, and Liv did a full front flip bump onto the outside from the ring apron, Rhea picking up the win. What did you think of the finish of the women's match?
It was awesome. It was awesome. I wanted Asuka to win. I want Asuka to be. I don't want anyone else to ever do it, but you know, Stone Cold's 3. I think that she should be the woman to get 3 Royal Rumble wins eventually over the course of her career. But I think that should be it. I mean, the 2 of them should be Mr. and Mrs. Royal Rumble. I thought that would be an awesome story. But I'm happy with it. I think everybody already knew Rhea was going to win. But again, like you said before, if it's the story that needs to be told, then it's fine. If it's predictable. If it's got to be told that way, then that's fine.
Yep. And let's jump into some fun stats from the Women's Rumble match. The Iron Women, of course, 1 and 2, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, both going the distance 1 hour, 1 minute, and 7 seconds. Asuka lasting 3rd longest at 33:15. Piper Niven at 28:05. Bayley 27:09. Zoe Stark 26:34. And then you had Dakota Kai, Io Sky, and Raquel Rodriguez, all lasting 20 minutes, just over 20 minutes in the match. And of course, the shortest being Chelsea Green at 5 seconds, B-Fab at 36, Nia Jax at 157. There were, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 20 of the 30 women lasted at least 10 minutes. So they definitely allowed the women to get a lot more time in the ring compared to the men. And I think that also helped. You know, had a lot of longevity in the matches. Now, for eliminations, I don't know. I think this is a record or ties a record. Rhea Ripley with 7 eliminations on the night. Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky. So all 3 members of Damage Control came in with 5 apiece. Liv Morgan, Asuka, Raquel Rodriguez, and Sonya Deville with 3 each. I didn't even know Sonya Deville eliminated anybody, but she got 3 eliminations. And then Piper Niven, Mia Yim, Lacey Evans, Michelle McCool, and Becky Lynch with 2 apiece. And then Zelina Vega, Nikki Cross, and Shotzi with 1. So that is the Women's Royal Rumble by the numbers in a nutshell. Now, I have to let you speak on this for a minute because I had stepped outside for a moment. The performance by Hardy sold out. I'm not sorry I missed it, but and just the look on your face is everything you need to know about that performance. But was it really that bad?
That was bad. I didn't know. At one point I didn't know what song it was. Like it was really bad. The vocals were so bad. Whoever set up the sound was terrible. It was. They've really got to stop doing this. They have to. Like, just stop. Just stop. Nobody came for this. Nobody cares about it. This isn't the Super Bowl halftime. You know, like you're not getting a Pepsi artist in there to like, you know, try to get people to watch at home. I mean, nobody is dialing in the middle of a wrestling match to watch that. I'm actually mad about it. Like
I'm gonna have to pull it up and watch it just because I've got to see the train wreck for myself. But I'm kind of glad I didn't miss it.
Yeah.
But we have finally come to it. We are a little over an hour into this show, and we are finally getting to the main event of the evening for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief, acknowledge him, who was accompanied by not only Paul Heyman but Sami Zayn, defending against Kevin Owens. The match goes 19 minutes and 15 seconds. Now, I will say that I timed it, and I said Roman's going to have a 5-minute entrance. and I started my stopwatch 3 seconds late, and it clocked out at exactly 5 minutes. So his entrance alone, from the time his music started until the music ended, not including the actual introductions, was 5 minutes and 3 seconds. So you knew we were off to a good start when Roman gets a 5-minute entrance in his match. But let's talk about it. Where do you want to start with this one? Because I think the majority of what I want to talk about is what happened after the bell. And I think that's where a lot of the focus is at, is what happened after the bell. But I thought Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns delivered one hell of a good match.
I think it's really disappointing that the ending was so good that it really is going to overshadow just an incredible match. I mean, I love Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns. When I see them in matches for pride, we were talking about it, and matches that they've had previously have been just phenomenal. The two of them together can work. And then throw in Sami, and then and everything that they're telling with this story. But I mean, the match itself is just good wrestling, and I could watch it for the next couple of months, right? Specifically with the storyline ongoing, that it could be an insane level of pay-per-view matches coming up. So the wrestling itself, awesome.
Let me just interrupt myself here for a quick moment. First off, thank you for checking out Wrestling with Fans here on YouTube. If you're enjoying what you see, make sure to leave a big old thumbs up and click that subscribe button down below. The other ways you can help support the show is to follow us across all of our other social medias. Check us out, facebook.com/Wrestling with Fans. Hulk smash that like button to keep up to date with everything going on here with Wrestling with Fans. Or you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Wrestling with Fans. Check us out on the web at WrestlingWithFans.com. New audio shows go up every single Sunday at midnight. Or you can take us on the go, download us to your favorite podcast, the listening device. You can get us wherever you get your podcast fix. Just search Wrestling with Fans Podcast. We are on all the major platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. Wherever you get your podcast fix, you can find Wrestling with Fans. Last but certainly not least, comments, questions, feedback, topics you want covered on the show, shoot me an email, wwfshow@gmail.com. Again, that's wwfshow@gmail.com. Links to everything are down in the video description and down below, so make sure you check that out. Without further ado, back to the show. Yeah, I thought, we even talked about their Rumble match from, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago during the Thunderdome era, that I thought they had an amazing match. They had a little hiccup at the end of that one with like the handcuff spot around the light tower, because I think that was a last man standing match. But these two guys, I could see them run this one back again. No Elimination Chambers coming up in Montreal, which happens to be KO and Sami's hometown. So I'm sure they're going to have those guys in marquee matchups. There was one point in the match where Sami kind of hesitated giving Roman the chair, which allowed KO to hit the stunner and get a very long 2 count. But KO got a lot of offense in. Usually in these big matches with Roman, there's a lot of times where he dominates the pace, and it's a very slow, methodical pace where they tell the story through the moves and not do the moves to tell the story. And I thought they did a really good job of finding a very happy middle ground from some of his other matches, and like a spot fest. And I thought they told a great story in the ring. I honestly thought the match was going to go a little longer. That 19 minutes went by very, very fast. And when it ended, I was like, wow, that's over already. I figured it was going to go another 5, 7, 8 minutes, and here we go. We get the match is over. Roman picks up the win, and then here's where everything kind of breaks down. I'll kind of set the stage, and then we can kind of both give thoughts on things. Roman continues to beat up KO. Jimmy and Jey Uso are giving constant super kicks. They're just beating him down. Ultimately, it turns out to where Paul Heyman pulls handcuffs out of his coat pocket. They handcuff KO to the ropes, and they're still doing the super kicks, still the beat down. And then here's where everything gets interesting. And, Roman is about to take out KO with the chair. Sami intervenes, steps in between him. He says, this is beneath you. He's done. You don't need to do this. You've already beaten him. And Roman's line back is like, you're right. It is beneath me, but it's not beneath you. And goes to hand him the chair. And that's where things got good. I'll let you jump in and give your thoughts about what we've seen so far.
So yeah, it's really good. I think it's one of those things where, this is it, right? I think everyone had that moment. You already know what's going to happen. You
Mm-hmm.
know where it's going to happen. He can't do it. He's not going to be able to hit KO. And then, Roman hands in the chair. He turns around. Everyone knows what's going to happen, but you finally get it, right? So it's one of those things where they've done so good with Roman Reigns, and I think. I mean, there's no more argument, right? This story has been what WWE has needed. It's been the only thing that has carried them through the last couple of years has been Roman Reigns and revitalizing Sami, finally using Sami the right way, and that built up to this moment where I think everyone lost their minds. It was just great. Sami, Jimmy and Jay, just what they're doing right now with this is. I can't wait to see what the matches are. There could be matches for the next year until WrestleMania next year. They could still build
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yeah, I thought it was great. The look on Sammy's face, because he was conflicted. Because yes, he's dedicated the better part of the last year to the Bloodline. At first it was one of those like, oh, it's just a joke. He's just a goofball, because he came right off the whole conspiracy theory gimmick where everything was a conspiracy theory against Sami, and then he finally kind of hitches his wagon to the Bloodline. I'm like, okay, and I was very hesitant at first, but the longer they told that story, it was such a slow burn for the last year in this story, and they've done such an amazing job. Having moments where you question whether Sami is legit part of the Bloodline, and then there's other moments where you're like, how are they not just fully blown accepting him as part of the Bloodline? And you could see the conflicted nature in Sami's face when he hands him the chair. And then, of course, Roman steps forward, and like you said, everybody knew what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because, and it didn't hit me until this morning, that they basically recreated when Seth turned on the Shield. The same exact way. Like Roman steps forward, had Ambrose on his side, Roman did. Seth hits Roman in the back with the chair. And that's exactly what happened here. Roman stepped up, to get in, KO's face again. Sami's got the chair. He looks so conflicted. Whacks Roman. It wasn't the hardest shot. Roman sold it a little bit, but it wasn't really enough to put him down, obviously, which I thought was a nice touch. And then here's where things really got good for me, because when this whole thing really started to pick up steam, you had Jey Uso was at the center of this. It was Jey versus Sami. Jey did not trust Sami. Jey hated Sami. This is really even, Jimmy had just recently returned, and they were doing the 3-man group, and then you get Sami in. Jey did not trust Sami at all. And it wasn't until 2 months ago at the Survivor Series where Jey finally broke down and says, "You are blood." What Sami did at the Survivor Series set all of this up. And kudos to Jey Uso, because the absolute anger and betrayal on his face. Sami hits Roman with the chair, and he turns around, he tosses the chair, and is like, I had to do it. Like, what do you want me to do? And he's just screaming at him like, you were my blood. You were my brother. And it just kudos to the writing team, and kudos to whoever's been working on this storyline for WWE, because it has been the best thing for the last year. And the thing, like the pop that Sami got when he hit Roman, I think the pop of Jey leaving the ring was even bigger, because I think that just goes to tell how good of a story they've been telling, that finally Jey accepts Sami as his blood, as Bloodline. Like, he defended him on Raw last week. And just for Sami to whack Roman with the chair, Jey just felt so betrayed, and he played it great. He did the slow walk out, and as soon as he turns, Jimmy hits Sami with the super kick, and then Solo gets involved, and then Roman gets involved, and they just leave Sami and KO laid out in the middle of the ring before they make their exit. And oddly enough, as all this happening, Jey still hasn't even gotten all the way to the back, because they kept showing clips of Jey walking. He's still walking down that mile-long entrance ramp. But I've rambled for a while. I'll let you jump back in here. But I was so impressed by that ending to that match. And we knew it was coming eventually, and I'm really looking forward to what's next.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to just keep talking about it, right? Because it's what they did and I think the storyline goes back further than that too, because you know how the whole thing kicked off with Jey, why he's even a member of Bloodline to begin with, right?
The match
Jay
that he
was
had
trying to
with
stand up. He
Roman.
was saying, "We got to stop doing this to people. We got to, you can't be doing this, right?" He loses. He has to like acknowledge him. So now he's part of the bloodline. Jimmy's there. So now he didn't want to be there, but now here he is. Fast forward to last night, and he is watching them. They are doing what he was trying to prevent in the first place as a member of Bloodline. And here's
Mhm.
Sami standing up to them the way that Jay used to. So I think that also kind of feels like part of it, of just like, yeah, I mean, like people are still, they're still good within the group. And I think Jay's kind of retelling that story, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, I'm really curious what this is going to lead. Obviously Sammy's out. That part, of the story is over. But now you get to tell like the interpersonal stories. Like, how is Jimmy going to react to Jay walking out? How is Solo going to react? How is Roman Reigns going to react to Jey Uso walking away from him? When all this is going on. Does this mean we're going to get a split of the Usos? I hope not, because they're like my favorite tag team in the last 20 years. But I think they've opened themselves up to not only concluding this first, maybe not the first, but concluding this section of the storyline, but they've opened up so many possibilities, because you could do, Jay versus Sami one-on-one. You could do Jimmy versus Sami, Solo versus Sami. Sami can run through the bloodline, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's got to lead to Roman versus Sami. Now, whether
Mhm.
that's at Elimination Chamber in Montreal, whether that's at WrestleMania, where Cody said when he first came in that he wanted the WWE Championship. Does Cody say, I'm going to challenge Roman for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania? Does Sami get the Universal title shot at WrestleMania? Does it go to somebody else? With him being in Montreal, I think you've got to do something with Sami and Roman at Elimination Chamber next month,
Mhm.
because the crowd is just going to be so behind Sami and KO. I mean, even if they decide to run it back, or let Sami be in the Elimination Chamber to try to earn a shot. I could see it going where like the Bloodline is laying out Sami Zayn, similar to how they were laying out Kevin Owens, and then who comes out but Kevin Owens to save Sami Zayn. And we could see KO and Sami taking on the Usos to take the Undisputed Tag titles, or even split the tag titles, whether that be at Elimination Chamber or WrestleMania. So I mean, there's
Could be
so many
elimination.
possibilities they could tell. And I think playing the long game in this story, unlike under the Vince McMahon era where it was a 3-week push, it's not working, move on to something else, pal.
Yeah.
They've let this burn for a long time, and it's just the best thing WWE's done in probably a decade.
Yep.
What are you thinking? Like the fallout's going to be like? What do you think the next logical step? I kind of rambled on for a few minutes about what my fantasy booking is. What do you think the next logical step is in this story? Like, where do you think we're going to go on Raw and SmackDown this week?
Well, they told the story from the beginning that no one was going to be able to break them up, right? So the whole thing was going to be, it had to be The Rock. It had to be The Rock. It was going to be The Rock. The Rock is the one that's going to topple everything. He's going to come back. He's going to be he's the end game for this, right? But they somehow they have a better story. Like they ended up in a much better story that looks like, to me, I think it's going to be destroyed from within. I
Mm,
think Jay is going to be the one that brings the whole thing down. Um, and I think Jay's the one that, they can tell so many stories, like you were saying, Sami versus everybody, but what about Sami and Jay versus everybody at this point? Like, and I don't think you split them up for long, but I do like the idea of an Usos on different sides of the fence. I like that idea for a while, but you can tell this story for the next, through to SummerSlam,
mm-hmm.
and then that be the end of it. The
So, are
thing
you
that
thinking
doesn't,
like Roman, Solo, and Jimmy versus KO, Sami, and Jay?
yeah, yeah, stuff like that. I mean, you can get some of those matches going. Um, and mix it up. But yeah, it does have to end with Sami and Roman. I think it does, and I think an Uso versus Uso match would be really cool there at SummerSlam too. I think that would be a really good add to the card as well. But yeah, then it ends, and then everybody's friends again, and the Usos go their separate ways. They keep one of the tag titles. The other half of it going to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, I think is awesome. Finally putting them back together again is pretty much everything that everyone's been asking for ever, since the beginning. So
Yeah, they've had such a volatile relationship off and on over the years, where they're best friends, they're the hated enemies, best friends, hated enemies. So
Mhm.
You know, they'd been, opposite sides of the fence. I think now could be the time where you bring him back. You have him, take one of the belts off of, the Raw belts off of the Usos, or the SmackDown belts off the Usos, split the tag titles up. Be a perfect time to do it.
Yeah. And the one thing that doesn't fit into the story right now, as I was alluding to earlier, is Cody Rhodes, man.
Yeah.
Cody's just going to show up, take a title, and leave. He doesn't even fit into this. It's not the right time. It isn't the right time to do all this. Just wait till next year. Don't screw this up. But giving Roman Reigns both titles and not taking one off of him leading up to this point also was something they screwed up. Because now they're telling the best story in wrestling. You can't interrupt this, and you're going to have Cody Rhodes come in and do it. It's like,
well, I think here's one thing, and I'll just throw my prognosticator hat on again, see if I can be as accurate as I was last night. I could see them setting up something, and I've even talked about this. We talked about this last night a little bit. Is Roman defending both belts at WrestleMania? One on night one on night two, and I think if Cody comes out and says, "I just want the WWE title," well, then you have a Universal title match, and you could do KO and Sami and Roman in a triple threat, or you could do just Sami and Roman. I think what you can do is you don't have to initially, thrust Cody right into the main event picture right now. You can still tell the story through Elimination Chamber. And then after Elimination Chamber, then you inject Cody. So they don't have to finish the story, but they're going to have to take a pause for WrestleMania season. Unless they do the, Roman defending one belt on each night. And then you can kind of tell both. The good thing is you don't really need to tell a lot with Cody, because I think Cody can do it on his own in promos and interviews without really needing Roman involved too much. But at some point, you're going to have to get him involved, or else nobody's going to care about the match. But, I'm really looking forward to the next week in wrestling TV for WWE, because I think that's going to tell us a lot about what we're going to see at Elimination Chamber, what we're going to see in the weeks leading up to WrestleMania. Because, ultimately it's going to be Roman and Cody at Mania. That's going to be the headline match of night two. But do you have, a Sami and KO? Does Roman defend one of the belt? Does he defend the Universal title in the Chamber? And that's how you get the belt off of him at the Chamber. And then you do KO and Sami at WrestleMania for the Universal title. Like, there's so many different things. And I think this next is, Raw tomorrow and SmackDown next Friday are going to go a long way for kind of shaping up the road to WrestleMania. But there's a lot of options, and I think it's really cool. It makes me excited for the first time in a while for this long build to WrestleMania, because we've still got 3 months to WrestleMania. So it's going to be a long build, and I'm looking forward to it, man.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
All right, well, that's pretty much reviewing the entirety of WrestleMania, of the Royal Rumble. I'm getting ahead of myself. Any final thoughts? Anything we missed that you want to talk about the Rumble before we get ready to wrap up there, Rick?
Yeah. So just, I like the builds. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for matches coming out. I like the Brock and Lashley at WrestleMania would be a good match to fit in there somewhere. They had what was the other? There was another one that they basically said this is going to happen. Seth and Logan. Logan Paul. I mean, that's probably going to happen now. So there's a couple of matches already that they're set, and then Cody and Roman. So we're already set up to have 3 WrestleMania caliber WrestleMania matches. So you're already looking forward to it. So what they're doing for storylines in between are looking great. So I'm just excited. I'm excited moving forward. I'm more excited to watch wrestling now than I have been in recent times. And I think the biggest missed opportunity coming out of this from watching it is having Alexa Bliss back in that spot when you have Asuka's new character could have absolutely fit that story and told a much better story. And we can just stop with injecting Alexa Bliss into everything because she has to be there. Because I'm just tired of that. And Asuka could have told a much better story in that spot, and it would have been then you would have had 2 stories that are just incredible instead of another Bray Wyatt. What are we gonna do now? Like, that's what it feels like. It's Bray Wyatt. What do we do now?
Here, I got an idea. How about if you're free, we come back in maybe 2 weeks. We can let's predict the WrestleMania card 2 weeks from now. If you're free, we'll talk about this after we record. But if not 2 weeks, in a couple weeks, I'd like to get you back. Let's both come up with like these fantasy booking WrestleMania, 39, WrestleMania Goes Hollywood, and just see how far we come. We'll get a little chance to watch some TV, watch some the storylines where they go, and then just see where we're at. Because I think this is like last year's build to WrestleMania was just kind of like, because we knew it was going to be Brock and Roman ultimately at WrestleMania. And as good as that was, it's just, we've seen it so many times, but it seems that they're shaping up, like you said, Logan and Seth, Lashley and Brock, Cody and Roman. You could even throw in the likes of like Bailey and Becky. Their blow off's going to be coming soon. Yeah. That's a match. It'd be nice to have some women's matches on WrestleMania that don't involve the titles. And I think a match with like a Bailey and a Becky, I think would be great. They're going to tear the house down. Of course, Bianca's going to have a title defense. Charlotte should have a title defense. Who's Rhea going to pick? Is Rhea going to go after Bianca? Is Rhea going to go after Charlotte? I honestly would hope that she goes after Charlotte to avenge her loss from 2 years ago, which I think WWE made a mistake by having Charlotte go over Rhea Ripley, taking the NXT title off her like they did. I hope that, she can get her win back, brother. But there's so many like options right now. I mean, what do you do with Gunther in the IC title? I mean, he had an awesome showing in the Rumble last night. Sheamus and Drew both had big, moments in the Rumble. What do they do with the Banger Bros? Which how does that get by WWE Creative? Like, how does that get by? Like, if you not had the internet, know what the Bang Bros are, and you're gonna call these guys the Banger Bros?
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. You all have got the internet. Like, it's just ridiculous. But we'll talk when we finish up here, and so we can get back together again soon and do this, man. But thank you again for joining me. Thanks for having us last night. Let everybody know the links for everything for him are down below, but let everybody know where they can find you if they want to check out Game McNerdia on the internet.
Yeah, Twitch and YouTube. Just search Game McNerdia on Twitch and YouTube. We'll be we're going to be ramping up content here soon. We got to play more games, but we have such a backlog of a library right now. And we're kind of redoing all of it so we can reintroduce in a way that, it's going to set us up moving forward. So a lot of Twitch, a lot of YouTube coming up. So check us out there. Game of Nerdia.
Are you still doing stuff on your own personal YouTube channel?
So I think we're going to change. I think we're going to alter that, and we're going to move that back over to Game of Nerdia. So I think I do have my my own Ham and Things on YouTube. And I do have some content there to check out for reviews and things like that. But again, we're kind of redoing some of the content and stuff, so I think we're just going to move it to Game of Nerdia. So everything will be there.
Go show Rick some love. Everything is linked in the audio notes down below for you audio listeners. It's going to be in the description down below for all of you video podcast watchers. But Rick, thank you again, my friend, and we'll chat here again as soon as we finish recording and try to link in something for the future. But that's going to do it for this week's episode, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. Once again, my name is Kyle, and we'll see you next time right here on Wrestling with Fans.